Hi guys and welcome back to the channel. Today I've got the tank review for the new, in inverted commas, American Tier 8 tank destroyer, the TS-5. Now this is a tank that, like I said, the reason I say it's new in inverted commas is because it's actually the unskinned version of the Hot Wheels Ultimate Season Pass tank, the Bone Shaker TS-5. Now this tank looks fugly. Really ugly tank. And it's been far too long before we got the unskinned version of it, and it's one that I've definitely been looking forward to because I actually really like this tank as a turretless TD that's quite slow. I actually kind of enjoy it, and I never really wanted to play it because, well, yeah, it looks like that. So I'm pretty happy that they finally released this tank. I thought I'd do a new review of the tank on the channel because I do have a tank review for the Bone Shaker, but it's pre 6.0. So I thought, you know what, let's do it post 6.0, show you what the stats that it can get to in the post 6.0 world with the new crew skills and equipment setup and stuff like that. But my initial experience is for a tank that it's an assault TD, and its armour holds up pretty decently, its gun's nice, its DPM's nice, and on the whole it's a pretty solid tier 8 turretless TD. So let's go through the stats. It's got 248 standard pen on its AP, which is fantastic for tier 8, 300 on its heat rounds, which is just, it means you can pen everything. This penetration that you've got on this tank, AP and heat, sorry, it's fantastic. It means you can pen pretty much every tank you're going to come against. You have absolutely no worries against any tank that you'll face with these two with these two rounds, basically the AP and the heat. And that's great. That's a great factor about the tank. And it's just nice to have. It's not like an underpowered penetration. So it's got 400 alpha damage, which is good with its reload. It's nice to have that at tier 8 again, because there's not a horrendous amount of tanks that tend to have that. Obviously, like, you've got the American T-28, which is the tech tree equivalent of this tank, which is just dreadful. But that's got 400. It's got a similar gun, but this one is more derpy, but 6.0 just means that this gun's better generally. 1500 hit points is a nice slab of hit points for tanks that have got 390 alpha. It's going to take them at least 3 to 4 shots to kill you, which is fine. It's about right for a tier 8 tank destroyer as well. 1500 hit points. 26 kilometers an hour. Now it is a slow tank destroyer. It is slow, and if you get some of the bigger maps, like say if you get into a tier 9 game with Fredvang, Kaobang, Mannerheim, and Desfall, you're gonna struggle a little bit to get anywhere. And it is slow. It does require those sort of smaller maps, but it does actually get up to that top speed, which is quite nice generally. And the armour on the tank kind of makes up for it a little bit more. But if you don't like slow tanks, this is not the tank for you, basically. This is the best way of putting it. If you don't like slow tanks, you don't like tanks without a turret, this is not the one for you. But if you do kind of like your casemate TDs, and you do like tanks that have that little bit of give, this could be the one for you. It's got 370 metres view range, which means it's not blind, but it's also not got 20/20 vision. So you want the code optics and the vents on this tank to just boost the view range up as much as possible. You see that when we get to the garage bit of this review. You'll need everything to help get the vision up to around 445, 450. And yeah, 370 is not the most helpful for that. But like I say, it's not blind, it's just not, that's just not the best view range in the universe. 27% camo. 27% camo for an assault TD that's got pretty decent armour. That is solid. Now you could buff up the camo value, sorry, with your like commander skills, but at the same time, this is an assault TD. It kind of wants to be in people's faces, so you're going to be setting up the crew to be that brawling TD. But just note that you can get behind like foliage and stuff, and fire from behind concealment, and you will probably stay undetected if you keep yourself at a decent distance, which is pretty nice to have, because you consider something like the Diamondback, which doesn't have the best concealment. It tries to do that, it'll get spotted. So, it's got a 6.32 round a minute rate of fire with a 9.5 second reload. Now you can get this down to 7 seconds base, or 7 seconds base, 7 seconds fully pimped, I should say. That is really, really good, and it means you can absolutely blitz tanks at tier 8 with that rate of fire for 400 alpha. That is really good for a 400 alpha gun at tier 8. 1.9 second aim time means that once you stop to look at a tank, you're aimed in, it feels like almost instantly. That aim time is absolutely fantastic. And, you know, if you wanted to, you could put something like a gun lane drive on and make that even better. But honestly, the gun aim time is just good enough. It's absolutely fantastic. And it means you just zoomed into a tank really quickly. It's got 0.44 accuracy, which is incredibly derpy. But 6.0 accuracy means that it's not. Because you get it down to about 0.36, 0.37. And, yeah, it's just not derpy. Pre 6.0, it could be. You were firing at range, you were firing at a good 300 metres, 400 metres, you missed a lot of shots. My experience of playing it now, in the 10 to 15 games I've played, it doesn't. It just doesn't miss those shots anymore. And that 0.44 actually doesn't mean as much as it once did. It's got 5 degrees of gun depression, which is a little bit painful on ridgeline. But the thing is, it is actually really low to the ground as well, with the gun higher up on the tank, so sometimes it doesn't feel that bad as it does on the T28. On the T28, because the gun is actually lower to the ground than the rest of the chassis, when you're coming over a ridgeline with 5 degrees of gun depression, it can be quite painful because you can't get the gun down and most of the people see your weak spots. And yeah, that is really annoying. But with this TS-5, you can come over the ridgeline, and you can use them effectively to increase your armour and make it better, but the 5 degrees of gun depression lets it down that little bit. And I kind of wish it had 7 or 8 degrees of gun depression so that it could go hull down better and make the most of its armour. But it is the way it is, it's got 5 degrees of gun depression. It's got 750 horsepower, which means it's got 12.5 horsepower per ton ratio, power to weight. Honestly, it does actually get up to that 26 kilometers an hour pretty decently, and this is the kind of tank where I wish the speed equipment was better, because you get absolutely no benefit out of the speed equipment on this tank. Unfortunately, you get up to 28 kilometers an hour with one piece and 27 with the other, with a slightly better power to weight. Yeah, it is slow, and like I said, that's where I wish we had a piece of equipment, kind of like the turbo on PC, that would like increase it by 4 kilometers an hour, you know, and that'd get up to 30. That'd be nice. That'd be really good for this tank, and that would make it a little bit more bearable for those that don't like the slow tanks. But it does reach that 26. It's not like a lot of slow tanks that basically have a top speed of 25, say, and then like a 10 power to weight, which means they basically just never reach that 25. But this does. Honestly, this does. 12 kilometers an hour reverse speed as well is quite slow going backwards. But for this kind of TD, it's not the worst either. It's got 24 degrees a second traverse speed on the tracks, which, yeah, it's pretty slow. You do have the issue that if a light tank gets round you and tries to circle, even medium tanks to be fair, yeah, if they get in that close kind of quarter engagement, they can absolutely wreck you, and you've got to be careful of that. And you've always got to remember that if you get into a situation where you kind of have a tank going behind you, try and back up to the nearest wall so that you can limit how far you have to traverse, because it can lead to your demise. So let's have a look at the armour of the tank, which is actually pretty damn decent, especially for a tier 8, right? So this is the armour. If you're going to shoot these things, shoot the lower plate, look. But that lower plate, if you shoot too low, it'll ricochet. And if you're just shooting here, you've got to shoot literally directly below the gun. But look, you've got to have between 210 and 230 pen to get through this thing's lower plate. That is really nice. There's a lot of tanks that will deal with that, but generally from the front, you want to be shooting the cupola, because that is the weak spot. Look, 182. Pretty much every tank will be able to pen this, pretty much, at tier 8. And a lot of tier 7s will deal with that as well. But the thing is, this is really good for a tank destroyer turretless tank destroyer that is top tier. So when you're top tier, this armor, and you'll see this in one of the replays, the armor is absolutely fantastic. Because you see in here, look, on the outside, it's 260 to 300 millimeters all the way around, and even at the weakest, it's 260. Gun mantlet's really good. Like I said, the only weak spot is this cupola. But if you manage to get yourself on a ridge line where you're using the full width of this gun depression, you can make it very, very solid. Like if this, there's so many places where this lower plate will get covered, and then it's just absolutely fantastic armor. I've had really great experiences with this armor. When you're facing tier 8s, it's a beast. Tier 9s do struggle with it, but obviously if they have the accuracy in that, they'll hit your cupola and pen it. If anything does get above you and start shooting down, the cupola becomes even worse and even easier to hit, so just bear that in mind. The other thing is, if when you're shooting at this tank, don't shoot for the front drive wheel to hope to pen it, because you won't. If we look at the visual module here, if you look at where the tracks are, look, this is the drive wheel, there's nothing behind it. So if you shoot this drive wheel, look how, if you shoot this drive wheel, this front part here, you won't pen and track the TS-5. You won't even pen it, right? You'll probably track it, but you won't pen. So if you want to track and pen this tank, you've got to shoot it in the back drive wheel. So just bear that in mind. But the TS-5's armour is absolutely solid. The other thing I will say is, if you are driving towards someone, you're probably best to be driving towards them frontally on. Because if you turn sort of sideways, say you start to turn like that to try and angle up a little bit, it becomes a little bit easier to pen them on the flat here, and little extra bits become more pennable the more you turn. So you turn like that, look, 260. It's still really, really good, but you've just got to be wary of it, and there's little areas like that, look, that just you can get penned. But on the whole, this tank is a very solid turretless tank destroyer. It can brawl effectively, its armour holds up, the gun's nice, the mobility's terrible, but you've just got to be aware of that, and it is a brawling turretless TD. So if turretless TDs and slow TDs aren't your thing, this is not for you, and I wouldn't recommend it. I would always recommend this tank to people if they like that kind of playstyle, especially when it's on discount, because 9.8k is a decent amount for tier 8 premium, but if you can wait for it to be on discount, that is a good idea, and it's, you know, it's a pretty decent tank. So as always, everybody, I'm going to send you over to the garage part, where I'll go through the crew skills, and I'll go through the equipment setup, and then we'll get on to the replays. I'll see you there. So here we are in the garage with the American tier 8 tank destroyer, the TS-5, and it's honestly not a bad looking tank. Here it is on its little carousel, tracks turning, so you get a little good look at it, and you're seeing what I was talking about here with the tracks. You can see there is no tank behind these front drive wheels and these front bits, so if you shoot these tanks in the front drive wheel and don't track and pen, don't get frustrated. It's just the way the tank is, you cannot track and pen it like that, so yeah, be aware of that. Anyway, so you can see I've got a crew in it, and I get the gun accuracy down to 0.36, which isn't that bad, really, to be honest. I run rammer, vents, and optics. Now, I'll show you what happens when I put the 10% speed boost on, just to say. You get up to 28 kilometers an hour. And I could never recommend, by the way, dropping optics, so you're always going to be running at least one of these. You only get 27 kilometers an hour, so that's what I was on about. I've just wasted a load of credits for you guys, just for you. But yeah. So the speed equipment is just pointless on this tank. It just doesn't do anything. There is no point. The camo, I mean, if you wanted to, you could drop vents and put a camo net on, and therefore drop your concealment rating to a ridiculously low level. And if you actually had a camo set up on this as well, yeah, you could make this work as a camo tank if you really, really wanted to. Again, I prefer it as a brawling TD, and that's the way with this armour setup that it kind of works. But you can run it like that. It's up to you. Again, it's personal preference. It's how you like to run your tanks, right? I like to run mine more aggressively. So with the TS-5, I run Born Leader, Rapid Loading, Sixth Sense, Trap Mechanic, Firefighting, Situational Awareness, Steady Aim, Run and Gun, and Armour Angling. Now, I don't run Snapshot, because Snapshot is pretty much only useful for tanks that have turrets. This tank doesn't have a turret, so I don't run that. I run armor angling because of the fact that you want to, you know, reduce damage that this tank takes. If you can reduce the damage by 5%, that keeps you in the game longer. You know, instead of taking 4 shots, it might take 5 shots or stuff like that, you know what I mean? Just the damage that you take will be reduced with that, which is why I take that. Firefighting, because getting shot in the back end has led to engine damage and fire a couple of times, and the firefighting was nice just to put it out dead quick, so that's why I run those two. But honestly, if you wanted to run it more camo setup, run muffled shot and run camouflage expertise, and your camo will be absolutely fantastic in this tank. So if you want to run it like that, that's always a good option. And I mean, in the end, you could also run armor angling as well for that brawling aspect, but then when you want to be more camo, you can replace the firefighting with camouflage expertise for that reason, right? To make it just that little bit, you know, to get that 10% extra on the camo. Or you could, instead of running firefighting, run fire prevention to try and decrease the chance of getting set on fire by 33%. There's also that, but there's also, as well as that, you could drop the firefighting and run clutch braking to try and increase the slow turret, the slow track traverse on this tank, so that you can try and negate light tanks getting around you. That's also another one that you could do quite easily. Same as off-road driving to try and help you on soft terrain. You could run those 2 perks easily as well, but I just accept the fact that this tank's quite slow at traversing, and try and keep myself out of the situations where I'm desperately in that need of, you know, a quicker traverse, basically. But yeah, there's multiple different ways to run it. I just run it like that for the brawling tank aspect, for the fact that I'm going to get myself stuck in, get fighting, I'm going to be taking flak. So I want to reduce the chance of RNG saying, ha, lol, you're getting set on fire and you lose health, or just try and reduce the RNG of rolls myself. In terms of the shell velocity, which is one thing I forgot to go over, it's got 860 on the AP and 1050 on the heat, which is kind of random. The heat is way faster than the AP. But yeah, just bear that in mind. The shell velocity is pretty slow. And yeah, just be wary of that, really. When you're leading the shots on tanks, you really have to lead it quite well. And that is just something you've got to bear in mind. You see the reload time is actually 7.69. I think it's 7.3 or something like that if you boost it with food. That's what we've got it down to. 1.9 aim time. Yeah, it's... Honestly, you'll see in the replays, it's a pretty decent tank destroyer, and I really enjoy it as a tank. But as always, I'm going to send you over to the replays where you can watch it play yourself and think, that guy's talking a load of waffle. It looks terrible. I'm not buying that tank. Or, yeah, no, you know what? He's got a point. I like the armour on this tank. I like the looks of it. You know what? I might give it a try. But like I say, always wait for a discount. Always, always, always. Because if you get it cheaper, that means you can save and buy something else as well. So I'll send you over to the replays. I'll see you there. So here we are in the replays with the TS-5, and in this first game, we are really, really top tier. Now, this is where I'm talking about the armour is like god tier. This armour is utterly fantastic for a matchup like this, and we're platooned up with Swindle and Chopper, and we're basically going to cause some havoc and play balls to the walls. We're just going to play really, really aggressively. And that's because, like I say, I'm just really confident in the armour of this tank. The gun is fantastic, like I say, and if we're facing mostly tier 6s and a fair few tier 7s, I'm just really confident that they're not going to pen us, and we're on mines. Now, I'm not going to go to the hill because there is artillery, and basically in the TS-5, because of the fact that it's slow, I'm not going to reach the hill before they've got to the top, and that'll just be really awkward having to fight for that position with many other people. So I decided, you know what, if they're going to, you know, my pals are going to go fight for the hill, they'll stop them taking it, I'll take the risk that they could get above us, and I'll go around the hill. Now I'm just going to be extremely aggressive and push round, because like I say, I believe that they're not going to pen me. You know, the armour on this tank's really good, and everything I'm going to face is really going to struggle. So I'm just like, you know what, let's just play really aggressively. We've pushed round, we've spotted people on this sniper hill, we've spotted the Plague Bringer and the Hellcat. We're pushing aggressively at this VK, and we're just taking the fight to them. Like I say, they're all bouncing. There is nothing that they can do against me. And I am just going to absolutely wreck their poor day. We shut down the VK. We've still got the tanks that were on the hill. And as I come around the corner, there's actually shots at this citadel here as well. We pump a shot into him. He's realised his doom. I can just sit here in front of him because I know he's not going to pen me. And I finish him off. Now there's an IS-6 sat in front of us. He tracks us only. And again, with his 175 pen and 217 APCR pen, he's a tank that's not really going to do that well against us. One of the tanks that would do decently against us is the Defender, and we managed to surprise him and shut him down. There's a Banshee at the back that's kept bouncing off us. We spotted all the other guys as well. Now the IS-6 is looking like he's trying to get a few shots at us. He's actually looking at someone else. We pull around the corner, aim for his drive wheel. Unfortunately, the .44 accuracy, or the .36 accuracy of what we've got it down to, derps into the floor there. Would have been quite nice to lock that guy down. We get a nice shot into the Hellcat 105, and then we return our attention to this IS-6, so that we keep our armour towards him. But what happened there, people? Well, that was my driving. My driving let us down quite badly then, and that actually meant that we put our tank up into the air, and our lower plate became really unangled and flat for this IS-6, and he managed to pen it really easily. We ended up getting penned in the side there by the Hellcat 105 with his heat. Oh no, actually, I think it was the Jagdpanzer 4 with APCR. But we're not bothered about him. We're just going to keep trying to pummel this IS-6, which we're doing quite effectively. Chopper's pushing into him, and it's like, well, goodbye IS-6. You never stood a chance, my friend. And just like that, the game's over. It was a quick fire game. I mean, at the end of the day, we were very top tier. We were always going to absolutely dominate that. And you just got to see what this tank can do when you are in that kind of matchmaking. Even when it's mostly tier 8, this tank is absolutely fantastic in those brawling situations. As long as people don't try to get around you, you should be solid. Now, there's only this artillery left in the game, which, I mean, we're never getting there. There's artillery trying to hit them, Chopper's way out in front, he's going for him, and he shuts him down. And we finished that game with a nice little tally for the TS-5, and like I say, it was great matchmaking. 5 kills, 4.2k damage, 1800 assistance, that's what, like 6k combined. Ace tanker, Spartan, sniper, high caliber, steel wall. This thing is a steel wall farmer if you manage to survive. 1975 base XP, 5 kills, like I say. It's a really nice, aggressive tank destroyer. When you're top tier against tier 8s, it can be really effective, and when you're facing against tier 9s as well, it can be pretty damn effective. Like I say, you just got to make sure that nobody gets above you, and that's pretty much it. And you don't get caught out in the open, but I mean, to be honest, it's like that for most tanks, right? You get caught out in the open against tanks that are a tier or two higher than you, you're going to get done in. So, we're on this second game, and we're on Vineyards, and this time, the matchmaking is not pleasant. This time, we're facing tier 10s. And I'm thinking, where should I go with this? Should I go straight up north to A56? I'm a little bit too slow for that, if I'm honest. I don't think I will reach that A5 hill before the fighting's done, or anything truly happened. So I'm thinking the possibility of just sitting towards, well, basically in our base camp, a sniper hill, and getting shots across at anything that gets spotted along the 8-9 line is probably a good idea. Because if I do that, then I can let my team progress, let my team spot out, and just play my tank destroyer role and get some nice shots at people as they get lit up, and try and help my team create a crossfire, basically. So we're pulling into this position. We get some people get spotted. I think it was the round panzer that got absolutely devastated there by our team. He didn't last. We couldn't quite see the shot at the Jagdpanzer, who is currently spotted over there. But I'm just sort of sitting by this house, because obviously by this house I can pull back and get into cover. We snap a shot at the back chat 25 TAP, go straight in, and there you're seeing, like, obviously the pretty damn good accuracy of the tank really in 6.0. And also you're seeing 6.6, it was 7 seconds base with vents, because vents, I forgot, don't affect the stats in the garage. So you're seeing with vents and all the crew skills and that, it's a 7-second base reload, which is really damn good for 400 alpha on a TD. 6.6 if you boost it with food. Honestly, it's fantastic reload for the tank. We get a nice shot into the light tank there, the WZ-132 I think it was, as he got spotted. We did get spotted there, but we've got this building on our right, so, you know, we're pretty safe from it. And we're just watching to see what we can do. We've got the Jagdpanzer over there. I'm thinking a lot of the fighting is going off in the distance on that hill, right? I kind of want to get involved. So I'm going to start moving towards that, because that is obviously the thing with slow tanks. If you're in a slow tank, you want to be thinking where you need to be next to try and maximise what you can do in a game, because obviously it's really easy to get left behind in this game in slow vehicles, so you just want to keep trying to put yourself in places where you can get shots. Now I'm in actually a pretty dodgy position, if I'm honest. I am really out in the open, but I've got some shots at this Skoda T50 which I'm not going to pass up. We're just going to plough some shots into him, and I hope that we don't get spotted here, because obviously if anything gets to like F7, 8, they're going to spot us, they're going to shoot us. It's not going to be that good for us. I've decided now that I am in a dodgy position, I want to move up, but the Badger gets spotted, and it's like, well, it'd be rude not to, right? We get another shot into the Badger, hoping to get another shot blind. Hopefully he doesn't move. Unfortunately, he has moved, so we don't get another shot in there blind. He's actually still spotted, he just went out of render range. We're going to see if we can get another shot at this FV402, but nothing much is going there. So we're just going to try and keep moving. I want to move towards a bit more cover, like this rock on the left. But like I said, I want to get stuck in. You see that Skoda? We could actually see him through the little abbey in front of us. And I'm watching the TDs, seeing what happens. My controller disconnects. Problems. And I'm thinking, you know what? They've just decimated everything else that was on that K line, right? So I actually want to get around the right-hand side of the abbey so that I'm protected from anything that might be camping on their TD spots on the 9 line. Like J9, you know what I mean? Those little hills. So I want to get behind the abbey to protect myself from that and try and cut off the guys that are going to be coming towards our base. Because if I get there, obviously I can get myself into a strong position and deal with it. Now that ISM is currently spotted by our UDES, I think it's a 15-16 that's not that healthy on the right. And I want to try and help this guy, so I'm trying to trundle into position. This is where the mobility is slow, and it's a bit laborious, to be honest. I thought there a TD got spotted in the middle, but that's just the bug where when they get spotted they randomly appear in the middle of the map. And then we get lit up by the Skoda T50, who is still sat in the abbey. Now I pull back there, I get very lucky that I bounced the ISM there, but the ISM is actually stock, which you're not seeing yet. You'll see it when he passes by. He's actually got the stock turret, which means that he's only got 175 pen, and because we managed to sort of turn back towards him a little bit, he actually bounced off the little bit of side armor where it's like 250 effective, which was nice. I thought that Skoda was going to keep driving, but he actually ends up stopping dead, which meant that my shot missed. Then another poor shot at this Skoda here, right above him, which missed. He bounced his whole clip off us, by the way, which again shows how decent this armor can be against the tanks like tier 9s. He's only got like 248 pen, but it was decent. Now, physics had its wicked way with me there. Just as I pulled the trigger and got the reload in to finish it off the Skoda, the rocks meant that we actually slid. And we ended up sliding so that we couldn't hit this Skoda. I'm looking for the shot to hit blind at whatever he's shooting at me there. It ends up hitting me, I think it was about 300 there. And I'm thinking it might be the AT-15. An APCR shot whizzed past us as well. I'm thinking, there we go, another one just hit us there. I'm thinking, oh, there's something over there. Maybe it's the AT-15 that's decided that he bounced a couple too many with AP, and he's firing APCR. Well, we're just going to keep firing blind towards it, and it's actually an M16. We just killed the M60 blind. It's always worthwhile when you're in a position, and I was confident enough at the distance in this tank because of how good the armour is, that I could just sit there, let them fire at me, bounce, try and watch for where their shell traces are, and blind fire them. And that's what I did, and that's how I got to shut down the M60. But I know there's an AT-15, possibly, on the right hand side. As I say, it was about 250 damage we took. But I want to try and see if I can get a position on this TD that's attacking our guys over there. And we've actually got shots at this E4, which is absolutely perfect. We get one into his side, he starts to turn to faces, he gets tagged twice by something, and we finish off the E4, which is helping our guys in their base. Now there's only 3 TDs left. There's the AT-15, a waffle, which, yeah, we don't want to mess about with that, right? The waffle E100 is probably just going to laugh at us and just wreck our day. So I've just got to be a bit careful, because I don't want to plough straight towards them yet. I do have 2 guys that could cover at K5, but I've also got two guys at D89 that I want to basically move closer in before I go, but they seem to be stalling a little bit, so I decided, you know what, if you're going to do that, I'm just going to try and keep covered with all these buildings. If I progress through the town here, down this road, if anything gets spotted on my right, I can duck into the buildings on my right. If anything spots on my left, I can just duck into the buildings on the left, right? So this road is actually kind of safe for me. The only thing that gets me screwed is if something gets spotted directly in front of me, and when I'm crossing a big open gap like we've just passed. But nothing's getting spotted. We know where the Badger is now. The Badger got spotted near our tank destroying heavy tank in their base, so I do know where he is now, which is nice. And I'm just anticipating this waffle getting spotted directly in front of me, and it's just like, I have a really good gun, and I'll just now laugh at your armour. Which, yeah, he gets spotted, we take the risk, we get a nice shot over the ridgeline into him, but just being anchored up on the rocks there. The AT-15 gets spotted above us. We're going to pop a shot straight through his superstructure because it's an AT-15, its armour's kind of sad against tanks with 240, 250 pen. And I've now got myself safe from the waffle with this building on my left. Now I get detected there, and I'm thinking, I'm not sure that that was the AT-15. I feel like that was the Badger, and in fact, it actually was the Badger. He pops up, he's trying to get a shot at us, and by trying to get a shot at us, he gets shut down by the E4. Now, there's only the Waffly 100 left. He's pushing our UDES-16 and the TD. He ends up shooting down the UDES-16, and he looks like he's actually got the 15 centimetre because it puts two shots into the E4 and backs up. And I was kind of hoping that he just didn't YOLO into the E4 and run past him, and he's actually doing exactly what I want, which is backing up into me, and we get a nice shot for 2 damage right into the back of his turret. And we finished that game with a nice tally again for saying we were a bottom tier immobile TD. Finished with 5 kills, 4.1k, well, nearly 4.2k damage. Ace Tanker, Halonen's medal for killing 3 tanks 2 tiers higher. Steel Wall, 2.1k base XP. And yeah, Steel Wall for 2.5k blocked it when we were bottom tier. Like you see, you saw tanks like the Skoda T50, AT-15 firing at us, and the M60 bouncing off us fairly reliably as well. You saw what the armour can do when you are bottom tier. It's really nice, generally, and really quite effective. I'll say I'm a big fan of this tank. Obviously, there's a lot of games which might bypass this tank completely because, well, it's slow, right? So games that are quick-paced might just outdo it. But you know, for the most part, if you can keep the brawl in front of you and you can keep enemies to your front, this tank is fantastic. So we're on to the last game of the day, and we are on Cliff. And this is going to be one of those replays where, yeah, keeping the tanks in front of you is vital, and what this tank can do in a tight situation in a short space of time. So we're going to drive up to the little ridge at E6, and the one thing I haven't quite realised at this moment in time is just how alone I am. It's literally me and the heavy tank behind me, and that's it. That's all that's come up to this top area. We actually have won the bowl area at F3, so I know that I'm not going to be getting shot from over there as well, and I want to get to this ridge line in front of me and try and get some shots down at people that cross. Now some heavies have got spotted up, and I want to try and get some shots at them as they cross because it is a good area for it. So we're going to pull up on here. We're going to get a nice shot into the back end of the FV201 Black, which is a tank you don't see all that often. And we're just going to keep trying to put shots into these guys. We get a nice shot into the T-32. He gets a shot aiming up into our lower plate. Wiggling there, we end up bouncing the Indian Panzer, which is nice. The T-32 pulls out again. We get a nice shot into his tracks. And we're just going to wiggle a little bit, hopefully baiting maybe in, because that is one thing that you can do in this tank. And that is because of, like I was pointing out with the tracks, and the fact that you can't track and pen this from the front drive wheel, you can try and bait them to shoot your tracks and shoot your drive wheel. And by just keep rotating and trying to get them to shoot that, you can make it so that they will basically track you, but not pen you, and you won't get taken damage. So we're trying to stop this guy climbing up onto the hill. We get some nice shots into this 45 TP. And I'm noticing there's also guys behind us as well. Now I'm just going to ignore everything that was behind me, because at the minute they might get distracted with tanks that are coming up to F3-4, and I'm going to park myself so that I've got the rock directly behind me and I can get shots into these guys like this FE201 Black and the Tiger 2. Now the FE201 Black, I'm pretty confident it's not going to pen me. The Tiger 2 is just, well, he's just off on a jolly, to be honest. He's just having the time of his life driving around on cliff. So we've managed to get a nice couple of shots into him. I want to get rid of him before he starts to turn his attention to me or spot anything that's camping in my base. We get another shot into him, because obviously with 248 pen on this 120mm, his armour is worth absolutely nothing. We shut him down, and now the FE201 Black is actually, I think, firing HE at us, which is kind of funny. We end up tracking him in place and penning him, and we've actually got a good enough reload to retrack him and pen him. Unfortunately, we're not penning high enough, rolling high enough, I should say, to finish him off, but we're going to finish him off anyway. Now there's another IS-6 in front of us, and again, I can keep myself just about hulled down with these rocks in front of me and make it really awkward for him. We get a nice shot in to track and pen him, and we're just going to try and keep him pinned in place. Unfortunately, we end up ricocheting there, which is really unfortunate, but he's still tracked, and we're just going to go through his upper plate. We're not going to go through his upper plate, because we're actually going to, the gun trolls us a little bit here, and we end up tracking him only. He gets shot by a couple of other people, and we shut him down. Now there's only 4 tanks left. There's a UDES, a stockade, and a tank destroyer left that I didn't quite see. And we're going to try and see if we can get into position to shoot this stockade, because this stockade is hiding at G34. But the thing is, he's in a position where if I get to the rock that's directly in front of me over here, well, I'm looking directly at it, I can get shots at him, and he won't really be able to do too much to me. Now I've got the hit points. Obviously I can only take 2 shots from him, but I do have the hit points, and I'm quite confident of this ridgeline in front of me protecting me as well. He ends up ricocheting one off me, and we've now got free reign to get shots into him. We boost our damage, per minute with the food, and we're just going to start pummeling shots into him. Now, unfortunately, he's deciding to back away from me into the rest of my team, and we don't get any more shots at him. We just miss that final one, and my team is going to shut him down. But that was a really, really good game for a tank like this, and we ended up with 6k damage, nearly 2k blocked, 1200 assistance, that's 7.2k combined, 3 kills, and a really nice game for the TS-5. And honestly, it is a fantastic turretless TD. We finished with the sniper medal, the high caliber, and the steel wall again. 2.2k base XP. It's honestly a really good tank that's a turretless tank destroyer, but if you don't like slow, immobile tanks that don't have turrets, this might not be the one for you. But if you do like that kind of playstyle, this is a damn good tier 8 tank destroyer. So as always, everybody, thank you very much for watching. I'll see you next time.
A great success!